Ani, Nick, may I request you to please come? Also, yes, please. If you keep sitting there, keep sitting there. Yes. So now we'll move to the technical session. It's my pleasure to invite Dr. Aniruddha Dasgupta, who will chair the session, Global Director, WRI Ross Center for Sustainable Cities. And making the presentations will be Dr. Anil Markandya, who is the Director of the Basque Center for Climate Change and also with ICRIER, and Mr. Nick Godfrey, Head of Policy and Urban Development, NCE. They will be making the presentations, while the discussants are Dr. Smita Srinivas, Visiting Professor, Economics and Innovation, Knowledge, Development, IKD Center, Open University, Senior Visiting Fellow, London School of Economics, and Dr. O.P. Agarwal, Executive Director, Punj Lloyd Institute of Infrastructure Management at the Indian School of Business. All the detailed CVs are in the packet that you have. May I request Dr. Anil Dasgupta to please chair this session.
Thank you, Rajat. Good evening, everyone. And I'm very aware of what Rajat said, that we are between now and dinner, so we want to get along. I was imagining that everyone will get a copy of this report. Is that going to happen? It is happening. And I'm also imagining, after what Nick just said, you'll spend all evening after this reading this report. Because after how Nick presented, impossible not to, at least. So I just want to, first of all, join Rajat for thanking all of you for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure to work on this together with Rajat's team, our team in WRI, and many other. And Meenu, who is not here, has taken an absolute, should get a lot of the credit to actually leading and conceptualizing this work together with all of us. And she really wanted to be here, but she has a class to teach actually right now. Otherwise, she was going to join by video. So she hasn't been able to be here. So what we wanted to do is not really summarize the whole report, but I wanted to share with you before Anil and Nick presents the key finding is the debate that we went through while putting this together. Why did we do another report on urbanization? As you know, in India, and that there's no dearth of reports on urbanization. ICRIER has, of course, written the report, but there. So the question was what we were trying to do, and I just want to point out the four kind of driving things that drove us to the work, how it was designed, and four kind of associated innovation the work brings to the table. And Nick actually pointed out too. Globally, cities, just like in India, it's a very big topic. People are concerned about how cities are growing. 2.5 billion more people will live in cities, as Nick pointed out. How will they live? What cities there will be? What kind of air will they breathe? And most importantly, will the economies of these countries grow if the cities are proper? Will quality of life for all these 6 billion people will be at a standard that we would like? And finally, will the climate be protected if we develop? So cities is a very big, important discussion going on. And in this discussion, as we looked at with Rajat about India's work and what was going on, the question of growth, economic growth of countries and urbanization has been very closely related historically, correlated, related, and associated in many ways. But there was not real evidence of this relationship at a national level. So as Nick pointed out, this is the first thing we try to do. How do we actually understand the growth issues, how India is going to grow, and what role cities play? And this is where we were able to bring three kinds of data sets together that wasn't available, but not available in this particular one. One data set is that we'll hear about a lot is the night slide data, which not only shows night light, but it was available for us for 20-year period. So we were able to show how cities actually grown, and people had done initially, before us, work that correlates increase in night lights to economic productivity. So we were able to take that and do it at a national scale across all the districts and cities, simply because that was available, and the second, because census data were available here. And I can't underline enough what Ishu just said about ability to write kind of data, to be able to do these things. This analysis is not possible to do in a lot of other countries because that census data, that quality is not available to do. So we were able to take nice slide data to talk about GDP at the city level, which is not available, as you know, in most countries, including India. That GDP numbers are available at national level. It's very difficult to estimate at a city level. We were able to estimate through looking at night slide data and how it has changed. So that is the first thing that we, as it's kind of a mixed method way of doing it, bringing in geospatial data, census data, and associated data to tell a story at the local level and GDP. The second innovation is the innovation about how cities are growing. Of course, as you can imagine, in India, cities are growing differently in different regions. We all know that, but we are unable to pinpoint why and how. So what the second thing the report does is actually be able to, because of a 20-year time period, looks at different cities and different regions and points out which ones are growing and how. And you will see in a minute, Nick will present data, and once you have these reports, you will see. That differentiation of regionally at its national scale is because of the data set we were able to do. And you will see how some cities are growing. Actually, as Rajat pointed out, after 1991, we say convergence, meaning every regions were growing. But then in the last 10 years, there's a distinct difference between cities that are growing faster and cities that are not growing as fast. Then we were able to ask the question, why? Why was that happening? And the initial answers that we have come up with, and there has to be much more work on this, is about compactness. We all intuitively know how cities sprawl and how city form. Does it matter or not? Intuitively, we think, oh, it does matter. But we were not able before this, able to point out analytically what the correlations are between how the morphology of the city shape is and the economic productivity of city. So we were able to show through this analysis of LICE data that the correlation between how compact or sprawling a city is and the economic productivity. I think this particular fact, like Nick, I won't say I don't have knowledge of all the work that's been done on the world on cities. As far as I know, this correlation at a national scale, it's not even done in the other countries much richer than India, because this kind of analysis has not been done. So this is a beginning of this kind of analysis at a local level. And finally, we looked at the evidence of transportation, actually more than transportation, connectivity and growth, and how connectivity matters. This is intuitive, but what we able to show in the report in a minute you'll see is that connectivity, not just transportation building more road, but the time it takes to actually connect, and connectivity in multiple ways, how that actually matters to which regions and cities grow and which don't. So that part as a national level analysis. The last thing we did is not only look at national data, but we wanted to ask ourselves in one same exercise, how does it look like from cities and citizens? So how do cities actually have services, and so we did it, and Anil actually led this work with our team in WRI. We looked at 4 cities in detail, and Anil is going to present that work, asking the question, in these cities, we know services matter for economic growth, but what does this happening in these cities? What services are being provided and not provided? And ask a question, because all the time we talk about cost of service provision. We ask a different question about actually what is the cost of non-provision in a life cycle cost of cities. And as Neeraj pointed out, at this point, when we started this report, there was a launch of the Smart Cities program a year and a half back. So we were interested in the question of what smart cities means and how can we help this conversation. Our judgment was smart cities, exactly as Neeraj said, is about making smart decisions about what kind of services, how, and what kind of innovation in services that is required, and that is the basis of the work we have done as one of the things that we show that when you look at full cost of services, and we're calling it social cost in this report, it's not just the initial cost it takes, but the life cycle cost services, that public provision of services is such an important, especially in transportation and others, is such an important part of the overall cost. So I just wanted to share with you these kind of inclination that started our work and the kind of methods that this work has brought in. I'm going to ask Nick and Anil to briefly share with you the key findings, and then we have Smita and Opie, who we couldn't have a better, I think, discussion for this work, and then we will open it up. I just want to point out the report we are launching today, which is a synthesis of 4 pieces of work that was done that I just described. One is on the spatial development and, of India and like urbanization across the country, which is used the NICE-LIDE data. The second report that's on transportation infrastructure in India's urban and rural development. The third work is on the case studies, and the fourth work is evaluating the size of the economic impact of urbanization, doing it the right way or not doing it the right way. These all will be published after this as background papers, and will be available on our website. We will not have a meeting like this for each one of them, but that's what's going to happen next. So I'm going to hand it over to Nick to walk us through quickly, and then to Anil.
Great, thank you, Arnie, and delighted to be here, distinguished guests. I'm just going to take 5 or 10 minutes. I'm just going to build on what Arnie said and build on what all of the speakers have said. Just walk you through the key technical findings of the work. I think Arnie has well articulated some of the key features of the analysis. One, better understanding the economic performance of India's urban areas, and specifically what the impacts of urban form and transport connectivity might be by combining satellite data with a range of other data sets. Second, looking at the size of the economic prize from avoiding dysfunctional, disconnected urban development. And third, building on a range of case studies to look at these issues in more detail. So I just wanted to start off just with this very basic graphic, which really makes a very simple point, which is to say, if we look globally, there are no countries which have successfully developed graduated to middle and high income status without successfully urbanizing. So we see a very close association between economic development and urbanization. And here you can see where India, as well as your close neighbor, China, sits on this matrix. So how do we get at better understanding these relationships? Well, we drew on, in particular, a very unique data set, a NICE-LIDE data set. And as Arnie mentioned, rigorous research on India's spatial development has been limited historically by a lack of geographical data on economic population, other variables. And we've been able to combine that with pioneering use of satellite data on nighttime lights, which can be a very powerful proxy for economic activity. Arnie mentioned that GDP metrics for cities is very, very difficult. It's more often available at the national and state level, very difficult at the city level. But it turns out that if you look using satellite data at urban areas at nighttime, there is a very almost one-for-one correlation between night lights data and economic activity in cities. So we were able to combine this from the US Defense satellite program with a range of census data and other data sets to really understand the nexus between spatial, urban economic development and economic performance. This just gives you a sense, this map of what NICE-LIDE data looks like. This, on the left-hand side, is a picture of NICE-LIDE data from India in '92, and you can see the huge surge in economic activity that's emerged around major urban agglomerations over the last 2 decades. So what does the report say in terms of key findings? Well, the first one, and Rajat and Arnie mentioned this, was that it is true there remains significant variation between the economic performance of Indian districts and cities. So this analysis looked across 33 states, it looked at over 600 districts, and it looked at over 450 cities. And it showed that whilst there has been clear convergence in terms of economic performance, i.e. some of the most underdeveloped cities in 1992 had caught up to some of the best performing cities over the last 2 decades, this convergence has slowed over the last decade or so.